In today's episode of HR Visionaries, we speak to Ben. So we have another Ben on the podcast. Ben is a visionary in the HR tech space. It's going to be incredibly interesting. Stay tuned. Welcome to HR Visionaries, where we unlock the secrets of modern HR. I'm Benjamin, your host. Join us as we shed light on today's HR universe with HR leaders and innovators from across the globe. Whether you're an HR pro, a business leader, or just curious about the future of work, this is your shortcut to the forefront of HR innovation. Brought to you by Hyrd, the AI talent attraction platform. Welcome to our latest episode of HR Visionaries. I'm looking forward to my guest today, who is also called Benjamin or Ben. Ben, it's very good to have you.
Yes, thanks a lot. Is it with you also Benjamin or also just Ben?
Ben is perfectly fine. Oh, wait, you know what? You prefer Ben from... I think I can go with Benjamin so that we don't confuse anyone.
Yeah, that's fine. We actually have one portfolio company, the CEO, its name is also Ben. So it's like sometimes a lot of confusing, but Ben is totally fine.
I think the funny thing is in our generation, that was a very popular name. So
Yes.
Therefore, well, many Bens and Benjamins.
Yeah, I think even the last 5 or 6 years, I think Benjamin or Ben was always number one, I think in Germany, at least.
And I must say, I really like the name given, well, wherever you are, people can relate, right? So when you are in Asia, when you are in the in Middle East, in Germany, Europe, Americas, everyone knows someone who's called Ben, Benjamin, or whatever derivative you have there.
True, yeah.
Awesome. Ben, can you tell us a bit about yourself in perhaps 5 or 6 sentences? Who are you?
In 5 or 6 sentences. Okay. So I'm Ben. I'm living right now mostly in Berlin and the rest of my time in Spain, but I would say 80% in Berlin. Right now, I'm still 40 years old. I'm turning 41 in February. So depending on when you hear this podcast, maybe I'm already 41. Born and grown up in Germany. We're traveling quite a lot, worked for different kind of companies and different kind of industries. And now heading up the HR tech ecosystem in Germany, which is called Allygatr. I would say that's me in a nutshell.
It's super interesting. Can you tell us a bit about your journey? Why have you started a VC in the HR space?
Yeah, actually, that's a really good question because I probably don't have like the typical way of somebody working in a VC or in general, like a normal entrepreneur in Germany, I would say, because I incorporated my first company when I was 16 and then did different kind of stuff, mostly always involved technology, but then spent some years in recruiting, headhunting, worked for British and US companies. And that's actually already where the idea came on the table or started about investing into HR tech, because investing into HR tech or HR tech in general was like 9, 10 years ago. So when I was still like in the recruiting area, was really unsexy. So it was B2B, investments were mostly B2C, and HR tech was not really sexy. So we already had like different kind of VCs and investors for fintechs, for other industries. But I found like a blind spot on the German market, especially in Germany, about like, okay, why is there no investor really focusing on this topic, which is like getting bigger and bigger, obviously, because of the demographic change. So that was actually the beginning of the journey as an investor. But before I started to set up my own companies within the HR tech space, so I did like, for example, Search Talent, which is like a bootstrapped startup, which I incorporated like a couple of years ago. And actually, I took like money out of my own startups and then started to invest into HR tech topics. And what I also saw in the beginning was that, especially for HR, not only HR, but especially for HR, it's really important also to have context in the specific area. So because it's quite conservative, the market still in Germany, I would say, the HR market. So it's not so easy for startups to sell and get a first footprint in there. So my idea was from the beginning, like to go two ways. So give them some money, obviously, but also help them on the operational part to get like the first traction. So we are really working with really young startups, sometimes just with an idea. And the idea was like to support them with money, but also with knowledge and with more operational support as you would get from a business angel, for example. That was the idea of Alligator.
Well, I think in particular in the HR space, it's actually pretty fascinating that, well, over years it has been, as you said, a super neglected topic, and nowadays everyone is like, okay, I have to be in that space because people somehow realize, okay, so we have demographic changes, we do have issues with regards to, hey, how can I reskill my workforce, how can I find the right people? This becoming now a super critical issue. And as you said, so the HR space is well, a bit conservative. Some people are more open to change than others, and therefore it takes quite a bit of convincing to implement new ideas, to implement new technologies.
Yeah, definitely. I agree, and we're still. I mean, things are changing, yeah, also in Germany, but really, really slow. And in HR departments, often really, really slow. I mean, we see a change also in the main stakeholders. So, I mean, the old kind of HR persons are leaving the companies, younger, more like modern, more technology-driven people are joining. But I mean, we still have a lot of like mid-size companies in Germany, and there's an enormous lack, but I would say also an enormous opportunity, especially in this sector, as it is not as it should be. So it's a huge opportunity. And also, I think what helped in a specific way was definitely also COVID, so that companies needs to adapt into the more modern kind of managing world. And I mean, new work is something which I think will be the future, and we need to adapt more. Companies need to adapt more. So I think that was also like something which helps the industry in general. But also I think some more practical things that you really now feel and see, like the demographic change, because I think somehow and it's hard to compare, yeah, but somehow it's like with the global warming. It's a weird description, but the global warming you don't really feel. Yeah, you know, it's like, okay, it's like 1 degree more, whatever. But as when you are like living somewhere and then your house is getting flooded because of like the change we have, then you feel it. Then you can touch it. Then you have an understanding. And I think with the demographic change, it's the same. It's like, I mean, it's nothing new. It's like, I don't know, 20 years, 25 years ago, we already know that this day will come, that we have a lot of people leaving the job. So it's nothing new, but you don't really felt it. So it's nothing you really know, you feel in your daily life. But now I think people feeling that, okay, restaurants are closing, not because they don't have enough traffic, people coming in. It's because they don't have people. Yeah, exactly. So they need to close because they don't find people. Shops need to close on specific days because they don't find people. So I think now it's getting more and more into the mind of everyone that there is a need of more HR tech, because that helps to get away of the boring processes HR did in the past, and nobody wants to do, by the way, because I don't know, a lot of HR managers like to fill in forms or whatever. Exactly. They want to work with people. That's like the reason why people start in HR. And I think in the last years they spent more time with like paper and formulas and stuff like this, but not with the people. And I think that's also one of my main messages I'm always giving to HR tech or to HR managers, that HR tech is helping them actually to do their job they love to do, which is time for talking to people, helping people, and not like filling out forms which could be done by AI.
Indeed, and well, it's for me, it's also like the liberator of HR stuff, in terms of, well, you focus on what you like doing, and all these other tasks that, well, that are very small tasks, that are really repetitive, that don't create so much value in their single execution. However, you need to do those in mass to be successful. All this can be done through AI, and much more efficient, much cheaper, much better, and you can focus on what you like doing.
Yeah, exactly. But it will be a long way, a long road actually to achieve this, because like I said, I mean, different countries, and I lived in different countries, they way more digital thinking. I mean, it's no surprise here if you go to Benelux or the Nordics, they are way more open-minded regarding using technology than the Germans. But like I said, I think it's in general it's more an opportunity because the market is still quite undeployed, I would say.
What I find always super interesting, and given we are a podcast with a global audience, that, well, the demographic changes and the lack of skilled labor is very often considered in every country like being a unique problem. Let's say for the UK, being a unique problem for Germany, being a unique problem for China, for the US, but it's actually very much a global problem, right? So when you look at the map, it's basically a problem occurring everywhere, and therefore I think HR tech space will become even more interesting going forward over the next few years, given it's not an isolated problem for, let's say, Germany or the UK, but it's a combined problem for basically every developed country and for those countries that are developing rapidly.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's like two ways for a country, like how to solve this. And one way is definitely like to really put in more technology into the processes. And the other one is like creating like a welcome culture for people who we need in Germany and who need to work with us and for us. And I think those are the two ways countries needs to work on. And I mean, there are like a lot of other topics, like we need to work longer and stuff like this. So in order to compete it, the demographic change. But yeah, you're totally right. It's not a single German problem. It's definitely a European problem. Some countries it's bigger the problem. For some, it's less. I mean, if you go take a look to Asia, there are like some countries they have massive issues in this, and then you have other countries, some African countries where the population is really young, so where there's a lot of potential. And I think also as an economy, we need to make sure that we are ready for this kind of change, because otherwise we will be really running into problems. Nobody can imagine really, but I mean, especially Germany, who really focus on the last years on production. I mean, we are all known in the world still for like producing good cars and stuff like this and machines. But we will not be able to outsource everything, and we will still keep those main technology in country. And then we need to have people who actually can build cars, because at the end of the day, you probably need less people, but you will need people. So it's like, yeah, it's like two ways. It's like getting more technology into the processes, and on the other hand, we still need to make sure that we are attractive as a country to get the right people in. Yeah.
Well, I think we should talk a bit about new work and all these concepts: working from home, hybrid work. Can you tell us a bit about, well, how your portfolio companies deal with those issues, and how do you support companies in, well, achieving a productive work culture?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think to start off, I think that's really one of the biggest challenges I would say managers have in general, because it's a different kind of management style. If you have people remote, it's not easy. Also, I think a lot of people and myself as well, I'm a huge fan of new work, and I will tell you and answer your question really soon. But it also comes with responsibilities, and also you need to have the right people at the right place. So, for example, not for everyone it's the right setting to work remotely somewhere, because he or she needs a team. to perform, and maybe a physical team even. Yeah, it comes also down, I think, for specific areas. I mean, I worked in sales quite a bit, because I mean, recruiting in for headhunters is B2B sales at the end of the day. Yeah, and we were sitting all together in one room, so we had like huge sales floors with like 50, 100, 150 people. It's like New York Stock Exchange in movies, but it was in reality this way, and it was good, because you can then create like this buzz which you need also in sales. So I would love to work alone somewhere in sales, for example, without really physical contact, and have a ring or can do something. It's harder, but it works with the right people. But I would just like to say it really comes down to the people. But to answer your question, I would say, and if I go through our portfolio companies, and we now have 24, spread it in mostly Germany, and we have one in Austria and one in Switzerland. I think 95%, if I'm not wrong, are working remote first. Mm-hmm. So they have some of them has a physical office, but they're allowed to work from everywhere. Some of them don't even have a physical office. I think maybe 10, 15 of those don't really have a physical office. I mean, they have a post address to receive like text information from the German country, but there's nobody sitting in the office. So, and I'm also like I told you before, I mean, when I go somewhere to conferences and stuff like this, I'm either talk about HR tech or new work, actually. And I'm a huge new work fan, and at our company or the companies before which I've founded, we always worked according to those principles. So you can work actually from where you want, when you want, and it always worked out. I think, like I said, it's just important to find the right people for this. And I mean, I did hiring mistakes, and we found out in a time that this is not the right setting. I mean, that's normal, but in general, I can't imagine to work in an environment where you don't have flexibility to create something good or something awesome. Because I think when also I talk to other people in my space, I think the really good people you want to hire and you want to attract, those need some specific freedom, but also self-responsibility. I think that comes from the employer point of view. That you need to have a good time management and stuff like this in order to work in an environment like, for example, we have.
Well, I think it's a super important point given what you said. Okay, you need very effective managers for enabling new work, because otherwise you land at, well, if you have the wrong people, the wrong management, everyone sits at home, does nothing. If you have the right people, the right management, well, you will be super productive because you don't waste time in going to work, wasting time, well, on the motorway, on the train. So how can a manager be effective in implementing a new work culture? And well, as you said, so many companies do that very successfully. So we had many, particularly US or Canadian companies on our podcast who, well, also mentioned, okay, well, we don't have an office, or we do have an office, but, well, we are 2,000 people and nobody is in the office.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but on the other hand, and I don't know about the US so well, but I mean, if you take a look at the European market and then also Germany, you have a lot of companies, they're going the way back. So they say you need to be now back for X days a week in the office. So I think you see two trends. Yeah, so one kind of companies, they say like, yeah, why should I have an office? It works the way, and the other one is getting back a bit, and I think most of them are getting back a bit because it's lack of trust, and also just because they are probably not trained enough, maybe, or it's probably the wrong word, but maybe they're not had the time to adapt enough for the new situation. Because I mean, it also makes a massive difference if you have like 25 employees or 2,500 or 25,000. Yeah, so it's not easy. And to answer your question and coming back, like what's important, I think you mentioned the word culture, and I think that's like one of the biggest challenges, I think, with working mostly remote. And I mean, we have an office. I'm sitting right now in the office, and some people sitting in the office. But to create really a working culture, so that it's not the case if you don't have an office and you don't implement stuff which you can do virtually, or that you're coming together once or twice a year. So I know a lot of companies, they're working 100% remote, but they have like whatever 4 times a year team event where they're all gathering together and doing some stuff, talking business, but also like have like this social element. Because obviously this is something which is missing if you're just working remotely, like this chit chat at a coffee machine, which on the one hand side can be unproductive, can be depending, but on the other side it can be also productive and can just help to create like a good culture. And I think to create like this kind of culture when you're not together is quite a challenge. I mean, how we're doing it, first of all, there are HR tech solutions helping with this, by the way. One is in our portfolio. I will not mention the name, but you can find out. It's like this regularly get-together meetings. And I think starting with having a strong vision and mission in place so that everybody knows why we're doing it, what's the direction, because otherwise it can be hard to like keep hold of those people, because at the end of the day, if you're working just then for a remote company and you are not able to establish like this working culture and this company culture, and you get another job offer where you earn 10K more a year, so why should I stay in my current job, you know, when I don't have any attachment or whatever whatsoever for product or for my team. So I think this is like one of the major points, which is not easy, but I think which is really important to create somehow like a company culture which is fitting to the structure you're working in.
Well, I think you mentioned a super important point that, well, it's important to get that company culture in place. How do you deal with imbalances, so to say? So, for example, when you look at some companies, so for example, at our company, so we do have machine learning people who can also work from home. For them, it perhaps makes a lot of sense also when they read papers, when they do real research stuff, to not be interrupted by anyone and to work whenever it suits them. However, you also have salespeople where, as you said, it makes a lot of sense, those being together, those kind of like pushing each other towards a new goal. How do you balance this, that some are allowed and encouraged while others are like, well, perhaps not prohibited, but like kind of discouraged to work from home?
It's a good question. I don't think, honestly, that I had a lot of cases when people, for example, salespeople, then came and say like, "Hey, I need to be in the office to do," because I mean, I can only tell how I running Alligatr, and we also having people doing sales, and we having people doing products. So we have people who can actually work from everywhere, because they just need a laptop and a proper internet connection. So outside of Germany, it's most of the times anywhere better than within Germany. So I just had a call with our HR manager, for example, our internal business partner, who's also helping our startups with like contracts and all the stuff. And she's working from Thailand. She probably and she had a better internet connection than in Berlin. And we are in the center of Berlin. I'm not kidding. But that's a different story. So I think when you hire the right people with the right mindset, the question not really comes often, because the developer will understand that, okay, I need to have some silence to solve stuff. And the salesperson will understand, okay, this developer develops stuff, so he's not talking consistently with clients. So he needs some silence, and so he can do it from home. So I think it comes all down to like the maybe also experience of the people. I think what's definitely could be a challenge if you have like more young professionals. So probably first job, and that could be maybe a challenge. But it depends really, I think, on the role and on the mindset. Because if I'm a good salesperson, I want to be, maybe my desire is to work with others or not. Yeah. And for example, I don't care. So we have salesperson, and I don't care if he's working from home or from Mallorca or from the US or from somewhere. I don't care. As long as the results are there, I don't care.
Yeah, I really like that, because I totally agree. I think it's about explaining, understanding, and then if you can't establish like a common understanding, you're probably talking to the wrong person anyhow, and therefore
Yeah, but
it doesn't really matter, right?
Yeah, but it's the right question, because I remember I was once sitting on a panel, and it was regarding new work, and it was like there were one or two persons like pro new work like myself, and then there were like other persons that were quite against it for different reasons. And then there was an example that was like a co-working space. It's a long time ago, so I don't mention names. Was co-working space, and there was like the CEO of the specific co-working space, and he was just raising an issue or question, which is right, because he said like, yeah, but I have people working in accounting, they can work theoretically from home. Yeah. And then I have other people there in the hospitality sector. So they need to be at the entrance of this co-working space. So, and then he said, so that's the reason why I'm not allowing any remote work. Which I understand in the first instance, but it doesn't really make a lot of sense, because I mean, if you have one person who can do the work remotely, he or she should do it, because it's just a setting, and then you have other persons that can't. But the same when I'm working as as a pilot on an airplane, I also need to sit on the. I mean, it will probably one day will change, yeah. But right now, I will still sit on this plane. So, but I don't need to argue, for example, that the same person, who's working for American Airlines as a pilot, I need to be in the cockpit. But if I'm doing accounting for American Airlines, I can do it from home. And I think the pilot will not argue that, okay, why is this accountant working from home? So I think, yeah, it comes also a bit down about like this understanding of each other roles and communication. And maybe the pilot can whatever do the preparation in the future from home, for example, because he or she have like this technical support, so you don't need to be in the airport 3-4 hours before the flight, maybe then 2 hours, because you can get all relevant data from home. So I think also like in those kind of industries, you will see a change. But yeah, if you work with people, you will be there. So I mean, when you work as a nurse, you will be there, and or otherwise you will get one day robots. Yeah, but I don't want to go this direction. But I think there's in general a good understanding of each role within the companies who are doing it.
Well, and when referring to that example of the pilot working from home due to if you then have some connection troubles, that's actually not very funny then, right? So, okay, the plane crashed. Okay, sorry, I couldn't connect to my Wi-Fi then. Then, since you're looking at very early stage startups that develop the future, what do you think the future holds for HR? Obviously, nowadays, AI and how to digitalize some of the workflows that are annoying, however necessary. Well, it's obviously a big topic, but could you already give us something beyond? So just beyond the obvious.
Beyond the obvious. I mean, the question is what's obvious? Because I mean, you're talking about AI, and I'm going to whatever German small medium-sized company, and they are asking me if they should start with Facebook for their employer branding. That's the reality. So and I mean, I'm in the HR tech space, and I'm a huge fan of what's possible on a technical point of view. But we can't forget, and that's especially for Germany, but not only Germany the case, that, like I said, HR is quite, in a lot of cases, not everywhere and not every company, but is still relatively old school. Mm-hmm. So I think it will take some time to get like the obvious thing, which is like, if we both talk, we would set up a company, we would do straight away. We would, use AI for logo creation. We would use AI for candidate communication. We'd use for everything, updates, interviews. I mean, you can build like a whole 100% digital recruiting company, with no person interfering, and it would work. I'm quite sure. The question is the market ready yet? Because I'm getting the feeling right now, if I'm talking to like executives, C-level executives and above, they hear, we need to do something with AI. But for them, AI is already like, I'm asking once a week ChatGPT to do some stuff, and that's then AI. Mm-hmm. So I think it's a long way, to be honest. So it's really hard for me to see the future. But I think like everything which is now more or less a copy-paste task will change. And I think everything which is supporting, like, we can call it new work, but we can also just say the kind of working environment which we need in the future. So people will be more doing projects. I think they will be more flexible. They want to have more flexibility. They need to be more flexible also. So it's not only taking, but also giving. And I think everything what solves, like with managing those people, we mentioned culture before. So how to create events. I mean, a couple of years ago, and I was there as well, we were really exploring like everything what's going on in the metaverse. Because I mean, you could do already quite good onboarding in the metaverse. I mean, we have one company where we are involved, and they're doing coachings in VR, for example. And it's working really well. And if you ask me like, okay, in the future, so why do I need to have an onboarding where I get people all together from different countries, maybe, when I can do it in a virtual space and save time, money, but also from the energy point of view. I mean, we talked about climate change before. It's a massive difference. So I think let's see what Apple will bring out with the new glasses. How this will work out. But normally, if they do stuff, it's could be a game changer, at least in a couple of years when everybody can afford this. Because right now it's, I don't know, over $10,000 or something. I don't know. But I think like the mixture of reality, virtual reality. If you talk about like what will be happening in 10 years, maybe, I think this will be a massive difference regarding onboarding, getting together, meetings, but also like other stuff. Like, I mean, when I talk about benefits, I mean, you can go with the whole company and go on a roller coaster together in virtual reality right now. It's not happening because of internet, because of cost, because of hardware is not there yet. But I'm a huge believer that we will get there, and this could have a really positive impact on the culture. But also, if this works in a really good way, and let's imagine you really have a good virtual reality. It's from pricing points like whatever, $200-$300, so everybody can afford it, or you get it from your company, and it's like not a huge class anymore, so it's easier to adapt, or it's a contact lens or whatever. I mean, it's starting with like the onboarding. So if you're working at the machine, you can directly getting onboarding. It goes over to events. Like I said, training, coaching is already possible. And obviously, it allows you to have probably a global talent pool. And combining with what I said before, that you probably just need specific skills, because you will get more and more done by software and machines. So I don't need to hire a person anymore for create logos, graphics. Exactly. So why? But you need somebody to give the input and to somehow organizing the project and do stakeholder management. Because, for example, stakeholder management is something which is really, I think, hard to put a software on it. Yeah, you can assign tasks. Yeah, but we all know that sometimes you need to talk to this person like, hey, why is this task not done? And then you hear something in a voice which a machine cannot do so easily. And then you hear, okay, he or she has a problem, and then you need to follow up. And then I think those are the things we should use human beings to do this kind of task, but other things not. And like I said, especially if you then think about like you have a global talent pool, because you can have sitting somewhere in the world with the specific skill you need right now, and you can easily have a meeting together in your virtual boardroom. Obviously, using AI for translation, so I can talk in English and you can talk in Chinese, and the other person can talk in Portuguese, and everybody understands each other. All those kind of technologies are already existing somehow, but they're mostly not involved into HR tech, yeah, but in other areas, and they're still like, I think it's working, but it's not perfect. So if you use this translation stuff, I mean, it's working. It's already software out there and hardware, but it's not perfect. So, and I think in 10 years it could be a different world when it comes to this. Maybe it takes longer, maybe 15 years. I don't know.
What I find super interesting is what you also described, that, over the last years, there was kind of a divergence in terms of like customer experience and talent or candidate experience, and the world you're describing is, it's now converging again. So that's something, we are used as a customer of a certain company, we will also experience as a candidate or as a talent or as an employee at a specific company. So like, the experiencing or the experience converging.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, and that's something I'm telling companies right now when I do workshops with them, for example, regarding recruiting. I mean, every candidate is also a potential client. And there are studies, there are studies out there. I think once Virgin Atlantic, either, or some other company from Richard Branson's companies, they did a survey. I think it was their mobile service provider, whatever. And they found out that they had like, I don't have the figure in my head anymore, but it was a huge figure which they're losing each year potentially because of a negative experience during a recruiting process. Because when, for example, I'm looking for a new phone provider, and then I have whatever, and next to it I'm having the interview process. Let's say at Telecom, just as an example. Telecom, I'm pretty sure you're probably doing a brilliant recruiting process, but just as an example. And my process would not be so great with Telecom. And 2 months later, I need a new phone provider, and then have my different options. And then probably go to Verizon or whatever, because I just see it and I remember, oh, Telecom, yeah, I didn't have a good experience. So it's, I think, exactly what you're saying. I think and that's what we're seeing right now already, like the world is somehow the areas are getting more and more together. I mean, we are sharing what we're eating on Instagram. Yeah,
exactly.
So and I think in the future will be, yeah, I can walk through a virtual whatever mall, and I can shop there virtually. I can probably virtually play in a casino, what I'm sometimes doing in the metaverse, and maybe there's a recruiting booth, a virtual one, or maybe I can shop and recruit, or maybe I can, there are like endless opportunities. And I personally hope that the whole like metaverse or virtual reality, let's put it this way, because metaverse, an expert told me one day, you will never achieve the real idea of the metaverse in the next 30, 40 years because of technical challenges. But let's say this mixture of private, business, working, non-working, I think this will be changing more and more. Because that's also, it's not new work, but like I said, flexibility, it's vocations are getting more and more. So I'm going somewhere, I'm working, but also have like some leisure time. So it will be more mixed up, I guess.
Awesome. Ben, thank you so much for all your input, for your ideas, for your considerations. Best of luck with all the ventures you're working with. I think there's a lot to do in the HR space. Thanks a lot. It was great talking to you.
Yeah, thanks a lot for your time. It was a pleasure.
And all of you guys, thanks a lot for listening in. I'm pretty sure there were many inspirations for you as well. See you next time.